because the procurement process will have been asked to terminate it and stop it. Again, Central Tender Review Committee disallows that one to go ahead. And I was getting frustrated. That is why I'm saying that these processes were the type of policies I talked about.
Did you really get briefing on the tender processes before maybe you spoke on Adum FM during this challenge?
What do you mean by go briefings? I studied the procurement documents, and that is why I invited the Procurement Authority to come and do a procurement audit on the process.
Okay, so you studied the procurement documents and all the process that had gone through before you invited the Procurement Authority?
Yes.
Do you remember that in that procurement document, one of the things that was found fault of the process was change in tender prices?
That was part of the report that I got.
The
explanation I got was that they were not changing. The procurement process allows them to do corrections on some of the tender documents that they have brought. But that is what they explained that they did. They didn't change any price.
But did the procurement process also reveal that there was double bidding?
I got to know from the evaluation report. The company that has registered in country also has principals outside the country where he imports the vaccine from. And so that company bidded, and the registered Ghanaian company also bidded. And that is what culminated into that situation.
And you were also told that the bidders were not registered with FDA, Food and Drugs Authority, an agency under you.
I didn't get that information. It looks like all those who bidded had registered with Food and Drugs Authority.
No, that was part of the report you got from PPA, why they said the two companies, Pharmanova Exports Private Limited and Pharmanova Limited, should not be allowed to participate in any procurement at the Ministry of Health. Is that not right?
That is not right. I met Pharmanova in the ministry supplying drugs and asked us to do re-evaluation. I assembled pharmacists through Ghana Health Service facilities across the country, expanded the evaluation committee, and they did that. After they have completed, before we could go ahead, that is when Ghana Health Service had secured sole source authority to procure, and they had imported. And we're going to use the budget that we're going to use to do this procurement to pay for that one. So I just couldn't have any budget to continue the process. And I informed, PPE as such.
So you finally give Kina Pharma the contract to supply the anti-snake venom?
It was the second best evaluated company after the evaluation.
So you didn't cancel the tender?
We did a re-evaluation. We got the product. But what we did was that we didn't have any budget. And I was looking frantically for some budget to do the work. When we found money, he couldn't give us the amount we wanted to give. So we slashed down the quantities and asked him to provide what we have budget to pay.
Did you also realize that based on the PPA evaluation, where they said one of the reasons why they disqualified the earlier companies was that they were not registered representative of the foreign company? Kina Pharma was then not also a representative of Innocent Biopharma SA. Were you aware?
You used the word was not then handled in the Ghana Health Service by control managers. When I got into the ministry, there was a big problem. Engagement between the ministry and Global Fund was zero. So Ghana Health Service was dealing directly with Global Fund. Meanwhile, when Global Fund gets audit queries, they will bring it to the minister to resolve them. When they're looking for certain reports, they will send letters to me to resolve. Then I looked at the Global Fund package, huge amount of money. They have structured the system such that the money doesn't even pass to Ministry of Finance. So it comes to the Ministry of Health, and everything is transferred to Ghana Health Service. And you were sitting in the middle as a minister. So I needed to create a system that will have an insight into what is happening with Global Fund money, because I was fed up with audit queries that was coming. The first one I read was something that nobody would want to actually see. So I brought in this young man from finance to come and sit there and look at how we can build a bridge between the ministry and Ghana Health Service, so far as global fund reporting and the management of their funds is concerned. That is how come I brought him there.
So when was he seconded from Minister of Finance to Minister of Health?
2017.
And he handles proposals on your behalf?
What proposals?
Proposals that are supposed to come to the minister. He handles them on your behalf.
I don't understand. Several proposals come to the minister. He cannot handle all proposals. So specifically, he doesn't handle any proposal. He sits as somebody who links with Global Fund and other multilaterals to support the minister in terms of demands from me, reporting, and what we should submit to them. And then I ask him to find out how monies are being spent and finds me reports to actually satisfy my curiosity.
So is that all he handles at the Minister of Finance?
It's not the only thing. Global Fund procurements and things that they bring to us, and Gavi, or our vaccines, they have to go through the exemption window. So he actually processes documentation and submits to Minister of Finance, follows them up for us to get the exemptions. When I joined there were vaccines that were sitting at the port. Some of them will go several days and weeks without any attention. So he has also been doing that on behalf of the ministry. He packages all the documentation and answers all questions the Minister of Finance will do to give us exemption to be able to clear these products or commodities for use.
So even though it's not a signatory to any of your accounts, but are you aware that without his okay, no payment is done at your ministry with regards to these funds?
I instructed him to do so because of the money they misapplied. And I wanted somebody to have a look at it, said that we wouldn't get audit queries unnecessarily.
Have you had complaints of unnecessary delay as a result of his work?
I've had complaints, but I've explained that people are resistant to change, including all of us sitting here. So when you introduce a new system that is biting on what benefits some people were having, there will be challenges with it. Thank you.
Are you aware your contract workers and the Global Fund have not been paid for about 4 months as a result of his action?
That is not his action. I'm very much aware of these challenges. Why would they be paid? They did something without Global Fund approval. Exchange fluctuation happens, and then you go and pay them on new currency rates. When in the agreement with Global Fund, that wasn't the case. Then Global Fund asked you to refund the monies, and you said no. I asked my chief director, Nicholas, to negotiate and tell Global Fund that because we are in the COVID situation, we are getting close to elections, to the end of the year. If you wait until after the year, and then we'll start making the deductions from their salaries. Before that, Global Fund has put an embargo on their salaries until they pay back what they owe them. So it isn't Nicholas who delayed those salaries. Please.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I want to find out from the nominee, the ambulances that we procured, over 300 of them, whether they are insured.
This is a difficult question. I have to check on this. There were instructions for insurance to be done, and I have to check on it, Minister. Sorry. Honorable Chair.
So, Mr. Minister, they've been in the system for, approximately almost 10 months or more, 10 months or more. And, Minister, you are not sure whether they are insured and they are running on our streets.
That is the case.
The health workers and the Frontline, when COVID became severe, were to be insured, right?
Yes, Honorable Chair.
And you took steps to insure them?
Yes, Honorable Chair.
Which company is the insurance company?
A consortium of about 10 companies. 10 insurance companies. We used a broker. So the broker actually syndicated the companies for us.
So can you name them?
Offhead, no, but I can remember Enterprise, and I think SIC. I need to get a list properly.
Did you go through tender to procure these insurance companies?
Heat of the pandemic. Even World Bank waived tender processes and access to facilitate things to move faster. So I'm afraid we didn't go through that tender thing.
But you know, our procurement laws allows for emergencies and how to deal with them so that you not be seen breaching our procurement laws.
I asked my procurement unit to seek approval for sole sourcing or selective tendering from the PPA, and I want to believe that was done. In the heat of the pandemic, honorable colleague, if you were me.
Are you saying for sure that you did go through the PPA even under those emergencies where there's a clear provisions where you can fast-track the process and get it done, or you are just saying that you are not sure?
To the best of my knowledge, we triggered the emergency procurement window in the PPA Act, and almost all the things that we're doing, right, we have sought approval before we do them. Some even go, depending on the amount involved, go to a central tender review committee. We have been very cautious about that.
And do you know that you went ahead to procure these services before even informing Parliament?
Which services?
The insurance for the health workers.
Really, yes, honorable. We were not obliged to come to Parliament to seek approval to go and underwrite insurance for our health workers.
Are you on time in payment to these health workers? Because you know some of them have lost their life online. Some who have provided those services.
No.
Why? No. What is the problem? Because
we asked the service providers to submit lists of those who have been affected and those who have died and all that. This we sent to the insurance broker to negotiate with the principals to give us reliefs on that. We submitted.
Chairman, pardon me, but I'll take it as part of my. In an answer to the question posed by the Honorable Muntaka, you just indicated that you were not obliged to come to Parliament. Now, nobody anticipated COVID. Did you have budget for it, and how were you going to get appropriation for what he asked? Thank you.
I think the Minister for Finance sought approval from Parliament to give us funds to do what we have done so far.
That was what I was saying. You procured the services even before the Minister of Finance came to seek approval to spend on those items.
Thank you for giving me that information.
I'm only asking you, I'm not giving information. Honorable Minister, the Upper West Regional Hospital, since 2019, when it was open for operations, have not received any seed money. Is there any reason for not receiving seed money up to now?
There is a reason. Remember, Upper West Regional Hospital is one of the Eurojet projects packaged during President Komfort's time, 7 of them. When I came, virtually work has stopped on all of them, and due to my commitment and assurance to this committee and Parliament, I had to move to get things done. When they were packaging in the procurement process, they didn't put in any amount as seed money for the project. We only got to know this after we have commissioned, and then the doctors that went in there started asking for seed money to come. We have had challenges with finance in giving us any seed money. What I've done now is that any new procurement thing we're doing for hospital construction, we have to build in a budget line for seed money, so that when they start, they can work with it. But that's notwithstanding, in the onslaught of COVID, we have given virtually these facilities we have designated treatment centers some amounts of money to be able to run the facilities, and we continue to support them.
Are you aware, or has it come to your notice that for 18 months, health insurance has not paid them their claims? The same Upper West Regional Hospital.
This hasn't come to my notice yet. For health insurance, like I said, the information that I have is that they have paid up to August. And when they tell me this, it means that all facilities. So there's one particular facility like this that has not been paid. They should petition me, and I'll follow up to try to find out. But honestly, this hasn't come to my notice yet.
You know, as a CSM is one of our major challenge, and I want to find out from you what is your plan for this year, so that we don't get there and we lose lives unnecessarily.
My colleague, when you started getting information of the few ones that have come up, even this year. I sent a team to go and visit the places to look at it. I have some sort of a quantitative report, a template that I have here, that I visited almost all the, how do I call it, districts in Upper West, together with the regional director for health services. And they work together with their health services that I have here. The numbers that I have here, week 5, through the districts is 4, week 51 is 4, 52 is 3, and all that, up to when they started coming up from week 1 going. So the numbers that we have are not very significant yet, but we have taken notice of it, and we are working up there to look at it. The problem we have with meningitis now, Honorable colleague, remember last year, I had to come to the chamber to brief Parliament on the outbreak of meningitis. The variants that we are getting on meningitis now in Ghana don't seem to have any vaccine on the globe. So those days when we will go and vaccinate against meningitis during the season, these days we don't have the vaccine. So what we have to do is public education, to try to advocate that you try to do things that will not necessarily bring the outbreak. Don't sleep together in hot areas at the same time and things like that. And that public education has started ongoing in the Western region, the Upper West region. Chairman, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the Minister, the use of the National Health Insurance Fund to pay for nurses' allowance. Minister.
Pay for nurses' allowance?
Yes, nurses' allowance. Using the health insurance fund.
Honorable colleague, let me explain to you. When we're restoring the nurse training allowances and the teacher training allowances, I opted that they should transfer the budget for health training allowances to health insurance. And my thinking was that we could pay to the students easier because health insurance has got district offices closer to the health training institutions. When we started, it didn't work. So eventually we have to switch on to U-Switch. So monies are now transferred to U-Switch, and the U-Switch transfers directly to the, how do I call it, students. So we haven't used health insurance money to pay students' allowances at any point.
Minister, you lead your budget hearing at the committee, and the budget documents are there. Apart from the capping, you use the fund to pay for, and the allocation is there, unless you want us to go into the details of the budget. And it's not money that are brought in there, but the fund allocations are made as part of the fund in the budget for.
Honorable Chair, I have to interrogate this again. Remember, Honorable colleague, you have sat on the health committee for a very long time. You know there is Ministerial.
You've also been at the ministry for a long time.
Oh, only 4 years. You have been there for nearly 12 years.
I've been there for 16 years.
Look at you. Now, Honorable Chair, you know that there is an allocation for Ministry of Health in the Health Insurance Fund disbursement package. We use that to buy vaccines, we do several other things. If that has happened, it might be that the 10% cap to support Ministry of Health might be what we have used. But that one, I still even have to check, because we get budget allocations from finance specifically for these training allowances. So it's something that is making me a bit amazed, surprised. I'll have to check on that.
My last question, nose masks for kids. Interestingly, because kids have to go to school, all of a sudden the cost of nose masks for children is very exorbitant, more expensive than that of the adults. And Minister, as you know, even though I know you will say, oh, why not wait when the education minister comes, you ask him. Because it's related to health, and consequences of failure to use nose masks will fall under your feet. What do you think we can do to make sure that at least if we can provide for every kid, we'll ensure that the cost is not so exorbitant to disable parents from procuring for their children to be able to go to school?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, the Minister of Education quantified these PPEs before reopening of school. The quantification report came to us a bit late. And Ministry of Trade, having identified the companies that sew the masks, actually allocated to the companies to do the sewing. They have to design special ones for kids that has smaller sizes to fit their faces. And even that caused a little bit of delay in actually shipping the face masks and things that were going to the north. It delayed about a week or two after school reopened. So parents haven't been asked to actually procure compulsorily for their kids. They can support, but what we are doing is being paid for by the state. I can't remember the price, I think 4 cedis or so, but that is being paid for distribution to all the children. So special ones that are being sold outside, I'm afraid I wouldn't even want to know the price, and I don't know how I can control those prices. The most important thing is government PPEs for children. The type of size that we are sewing gets to them as frequently and as quickly as possible.
Very well. Honorable Leader.
Honorable Minister Designate, 2 years ago, some waiver was given, which waiver enabled local pharmaceutical companies to get a platform to produce some other drugs that otherwise were imported. In effect, there was some restriction on some drugs being imported. Will you consider, in view of this waiver, a value chain effect in terms of packaging so that our local printing companies do benefit?
Thank you, Honorable colleague. The pharmacists who benefited from this package continue to petition, and we work closely with them. We try to listen to their concerns, and this is an area that we're exploring. You know, some of these exemptions, especially on packages, for example, will have what we call economics, some externalities. You know, the material is not used for only packaging drugs. So immediately you bring the rates down. It can affect several other packaging areas that the finance ministry will not be comfortable with. But we are engaging. So it becomes feasible that we extend that over to that area and it will be acceptable to Minister of Finance. We will not hesitate at all to so do.
Honorable, I think perhaps I need to properly situate the question. You see, some restrictions have been placed on importation of some drugs. Your colleague, the then Trade Minister, came to announce it on the House floor. My point here is that these pharmaceutical companies, now having that space to produce these drugs locally, meaning we no more allow importation of these. These locally produced drugs are labeled. I am saying that instead of they having to import these labels from China and India, we need to also look at value chain effects to create employment and all that. Would you want to consider that arrangement to also impress on them to rely on our local printing companies? Because Assembly Press is there. They have very sophisticated machinery, equipment, graphic communications. They are doing so well. Would you consider making such a strong suggestion to them?
No, I don't understand your plea. I think I also do. I also do.
You also do. Thank you so much. That's a good commitment. Now,
sorry, you use the harsh word commitment. No,
yes, if you so do. I mean, once you are committed, I'm happy.
Yeah, let me withdraw. I also do.
Oh, Because it's good for
I'm
our
going
local
to make
economy.
the efforts to engage
It's
them.
employment creation. So I'm happy you are committed to taking this
Okay.
up. Yes.
Okay, I'm committed
But
to take it up.
you don't need to run
okay.
away from this commitment.
I will take it up.
Yes. The local printing firms will be happy with you.
So that next time I wouldn't be facing questions like, you made assurances, you did this. That is why.
Very well, no problem. Honorable, you see, Mr. Chair, the Ghana Health Service has its own entity head, correct?
That's correct.
And you don't supervise that entity head, do you?
I'm supposed to supervise that entity head.
But he's independent in terms of...
It's independent in terms of operations.
That's correct.
When it comes to policy, the ministry does it.
That's correct. So that's correct. So you wouldn't be privy to operational decisions regarding procurement between the Ghana Health Services and another entity.
The Ghana Health Service has its own procurement unit. They do their own procurement without recourse to the ministry.
Very well. So was this your suggestion when you had said that when it came to the issue of testing at the airport, it wasn't your ministry that directly handled it, and possibly it was an arrangement between Ghana Health Services and the task force?
Honorable Chair, I think I mentioned that.
Just for emphasis, that is why.
Yes. Then I'll emphasize.
Yes,
so collaboration
because if it is the Ghana Health Service, obviously you can't be the entity head.
Yes.
I just wanted for emphasis.
I must say, the Director General for Ghana Health Services, Dr. Abuaje, was involved in that area.
Now, my colleague, Honorable Ablakwa, had made a statement on the House floor regarding this testing at the airport, raised the cost, and among others also raised an alarm that the entity is not even registered in Ghana. The entity is not registered in Ghana. This afternoon, Honorable Muntaka has said that the entity is a registered entity in Ghana, except that he qualified it by saying the ownership is... yes, that's what the Honorable Muntaka, he said it is owned by a Nigerian. I just speak to the record. What one of our colleagues there referred to the regulatory authority and mentioned that at the time that the entity was in place, it hadn't been licensed by the National Health Regulatory Authority. That is my understanding.
Chairman, my name has been mentioned. If I can clarify.
Honourable members, please.
My name, the Honourable Deputy Leader has mentioned my name directly.
Hello. Yes. Now, what is the question you want to ask the minister? What do you want him to answer to?
Honorable Minister Designate, if I got you correctly, the entity that is doing the testing at the airport was a registered entity at the time it engaged in the exercise at the airport.
Honorable Chair, I told you that I wasn't very much privy to the procurement processes at the initial stages. So as to the documentation or registration of the company in Ghana or anywhere, I won't be able to answer these questions. Probably those in Ghana Health Service who collaborated with a small group within the task force to do that will be able to answer. It looks like they use the Ghana Health Service procurement unit. It looks like, but I'm not very sure. So these things will have to be interrogated elsewhere and away from this forum.
Now, the company that is doing the testing at the airport, would you agree with me that it doesn't need to have a laboratory outside of the airport to have the capacity to do what it's doing at the airport?
Definitely, yes. That was how the whole structure was framed. they wanted to do testing within 10 or 15 minutes for people to exit the airport. So they were supposed to take samples to go to Akai or Noguchi. That 10 minutes or 20, 30 minutes wouldn't work. And to my knowledge, the information I had, and the reports that I keep on receiving, the fact that they have set up their own equipment at the airport. The port health staff that have been trained will pick samples, and they do the testing in their own place there to allow people to either go into quarantine if they are positive or exit the airport if they are negative.
And
yes,
and
I hear they've even installed some of the equipment at the quarantine facility in La Palm to continue testing after 1 week and so forth, so that people will not be carried back to the airport for the testing.
And is it your case that the services they provide at the airport is the first of its kind, and no prior domestic experience is required?
It's the first of its kind domestically, even globally. When they started that process, a few people who came through, foreigners, and visited the ministry, testified to that the structure we have here, they have traveled across Europe and across America, they have never seen it. So ours was a bit unique.
Now, would you consider a negotiation that would lead to a further reduction? Because you informed the committee that ECOWAS citizens are having some rebate now. I am concerned. Could you possibly look at?
We are still looking at it, but now that ECOWAS has adopted, and it's going to be a common thing across the continent, the sub-region, our negotiations may reduce it in Ghana, and it may also affect the ECOWAS community. But you see, what escalated the price after my first interrogation, when the president asked me to do that, was the cost build-up that they tried to explain. And then we said, okay, but then with complaints and people were following and wrote that, the president insisted that let us continue to engage them. And that came down to accept the $50 that is being done across the sub-region.
So, to the best of your knowledge, the services they provide at the airport doesn't come at a cost to government of Ghana.
It's a partnership. They provided equipment, and then we provided the health staff, I think, and I think security is also provided by us. So the facility is owned by them, the entire infrastructure, the equipment and everything, and we provide personnel to man them after their training.
So they are not charging government of Ghana for any services?
No, we haven't paid any money to them at all.
The charges, if you say partnership, does that mean that they do profit sharing with Ghana Airport Company, since you are also providing them with a space? Is there profit sharing or some revenue come to government? Because Ghanaians would want to.
I may have to interrogate this area as well.
Whether they are paying.
We have to see the agreement and things like that before I'll be able to answer these questions.
Very well. Thank you so much.
Honorable Ranking Member.
Chairman, I should thank you for the opportunity that the nominee is a returnee minister to the Ministry of Health. And just for the record, whilst he was appreciating himself and what government has done, it's important that you appreciated that part of the serene labor environment is the fact that the previous administration of John Mahama and ourselves gave to the Ghana Health Service, and particularly health workers, the first ever codified conditions of service, and that has contributed to normalcy and some industrial peace and harmony. It is also, Chairman, not too factual when the minister says that there was no financial clearance in the past. There was. In fact, October and November 2016, which we inherited, there was 9,500 of nurses recruited by a letter signed then by Honorable Setekpe. It is also to be noted that the Public Financial Management Act also, because it's a meeting of record, provided that negotiations of public service workers, including health workers, be completed before budget. So it's made it better in terms of payroll and wage salary management, that within the year you are not likely to have any hitches because these matters would have been conclusive before budget. My first question is, have you seen a copy of the contract with Frontiers Healthcare Services Limited charging the $150 per person as part of the COVID testing? Have you cited a copy?
Honorable Chair, I haven't seen it, please.
Chairman would request that a copy be made available to us. Do you know how the $150 charge was determined?
Hold on. Who would make the copy available to you? He says he has not seen it. He has not cited it. So it would not be fair to ask him to produce it. So
but who should produce? His health minister when it happened. He was health minister when the agreement was signed. And he holds supervisory responsibility for that. So, Chairman, I would insist that it's him who can provide us.
Without due deference, we will discuss this, but I think that when a witness has not admitted that he holds a copy, you cannot ask him to produce it.
So, Chairman, then, Chairman, let's write formally to the Presidential Task Force on COVID to make available to this committee relevant
let's
documents.
Proceed with the examination of the witness. These extraneous matters about...
Chairman, it's not extraneous.
No, when he puts the documents in, if you find that there's a procurement breach, he says, I was not part of it. So you cannot hold him to that.
But in Ghana, he is our Minister for Health. Who do I hold responsible?
You can accuse him of not doing his work, but don't ask him to bring a document he's not a part of. Let's not be doing this argument here. But please.
So who has responsibility for COVID and its management in Ghana? So, Chairman, we request that the Presidential Task Force is formally written to make available to this committee the contract of Frontiers Healthcare Services Limited, which is charging that arbitrary $150, not approved by our fees and charges regime as a country, and was arbitrarily determined. We need it going forward. Minister has noted that poor hygiene and sanitation remains a major challenge of health delivery in Ghana. What will you do to address that?
Honorable Chair, I think we are addressing this issue. You finished the question.
Chairman,
why should we wait?
Frontline health workers who have been assisting you fight COVID to combat and contain COVID, when was the last time they were paid their deserved allowances?
Honorable Chair, I must admit that there have been some delays to some portions of these frontline workers. We set up a system that was soliciting data from the facilities. And on my last check last week, looks like finance queried the numbers that were coming. So the facility managers were asked to review the type of list that they have brought.
Are you aware that that can affect morale and delivery? If you work for 4-6 months, you are not paid your allowance?
I believe if the monies haven't been paid, today is Wednesday. We send them, they brought some of these.
Those for which validation have been done, when will they be paid their allowances?
I expect by close of this week. Monies will have been released and they may have been paid.
The UK Academy of Health Sciences talks about the new threat of future health, what they call multimorbidity. What steps are you taking for the country Ghana to contain people with simultaneous diseases?
Honorable Chair, this is not a new phenomenon in this country. We have people with comorbidities, and we are treating them. So the service provision that we are doing will cater for these. They keep on bringing out challenges that we have at our annual health summits. and we revise our plans to try to tackle some of these things. So the same strategies that we are using, we learn from others as well. We send people for training. I believe that these are things that we can do going forward without so many challenges.
Does the emergence of COVID and abnormality with a public health pandemic allow for the austin of our procurement processes and laws?
Allow for what? The word you use there.
Arresting.
Oh.
To set aside.
I think we have a window of emergency procurement in the Procurement Act. And instead of throwing away the entire Procurement Act, I want to think that we have to just trigger that window to allow us to do sourcing as has been prescribed in the emergency portion sections of the Act.
Do you share the view that teaching hospitals be granted autonomy and that out of what they earned as IGF, part of it be used for purpose of compensation payment in order to relieve government of some burden?
I do agree. I do agree.
How do you intend to undertake that if you are confirmed as Minister for Health?
But we have to tread cautiously. We already have started engaging. Kolebu submitted a proposal, and I cautioned. Already they collect IGFs. That doesn't come to the national level. They utilize the IGFs to do their work. But time and time upon time and again, they keep on requesting the ministry to bring them extra funds. So my fear is if we are not careful and we grant them that autonomy and sedate them, the entire health system at that high level is likely to break down. Even this afternoon, yesterday, when the chief executive of Kolebu came to me, Minister, our oxygen situation, Minister, this is our equipment, Minister, this. And I keep on, when I meet the chief executives of the hospitals, that if any finance minister looks at the type of IGFs that we are generating through health insurance, at least, he may not give you any extra allocation to fund anything. So there's a bit of a problem, and that is what I intend tackling in the next 4 years, as to look at how we manage the IGFs that we generate in the health facilities. We have done the guidelines for Ghana Health Service, and I'm working closely with the teaching hospitals. If they situate themselves to the point that they can earn and take care of themselves, that will be good for all of us. And I think that's the way we'll let them go. But then they will become like a semi-autonomous private institution. And if we are not careful, charges will escalate and we might not be able to pay for service in those hospitals. So
do we have a formal, officially published palliative healthcare policy in Ghana?
At the moment, I would say no.
What do you intend to do about it to support palliative healthcare in Ghana, and when?
Palliative healthcare, some part of it has been captured in the more area of the non-communicable diseases policy. And we will take it out now that it's becoming prominent to try to see if we can develop a proper policy for palliation.
There are shortages of critical care nurses in Ghana. What do you intend to do about it in some facilities, including the Kolebu Teaching Hospital?
Between last year and now, we have put in close to about 90 nurses to upgrade their skills into critical care. Yesterday, I was confronted with a situation where some of them haven't been able to pay their fees, and the principal is trying to even increase the fees, and I drew his attention to the Fees and Levies Act and ask him to suspend until we engage properly. So we are increasing the numbers that we enroll into existing schools, and we are designating some of the schools to begin to do diploma in critical care nursing so that we can increase the numbers. But we are looking for support to see if we can actually give them scholarships or sponsorships so that we can facilitate the speeding up of these nurses in the system.
In an answer to an earlier question posed by the Honorable Sohina and subsequently by the Honorable Muntaka, you referred to Famanova. Yes, they have a reputation for snake vaccines, or that particular medication you referred to. But the difficulty of Honorable Sohina and Honorable Muntaka is that did you, as minister, ignore admonitions from the Central Tender Board and the Public Procurement Board on the procurement process leading to the determination of Kina Farmer?
Please, I didn't.
And that the procurement rules were strictly adhered?
Yes, please.
Were there changes in the figures as submitted on the day of tender and subsequent award of contract?
Honorable colleague, when the problem arose, I said here that I invited the Procurement Authority to come and do an audit and guide me through the processes. So I was following the guidance that they gave me. They asked me to do reevaluation, which we did.
But the same Procurement Authority, by a letter, I'll give you the date, raised objections of you proceeding further. How do we reconcile that?
I don't know which days we are talking about. Because after the reevaluation, that was when we should have awarded straight.
There was a letter signed March 26, 2019, signed by then Chief Executive ABA AJ. PPA ordered the Health Ministry to disqualify. Did you cite that correspondence?
Disqualify who?
In that letter, former Nova Export Private Limited of India and former Nova Limited of Ghana on the basis of the tender. And I've said that I can speak to their reputation for snake vassals.
Honorable Chair, and subsequent to this letter, have you cited any document that has awarded that contract to Famanova?
Honorable nominee, you don't ask the question, just answer.
Chair, I'm sorry, but I'm being a little bit curious.
HIV, hepatitis B, and others, what plans do you have to make medication for them affordable to Ghanaians affected by it?
We are getting support from Global Fund so far as HIV and TB is concerned, including malaria. So they give us monies based on agreements that we underwrite with them. It's a donor funding based in Geneva. They support us, but we do co-funding in terms of medication. And we rely on government resources approved by Parliament to also continue to buy medicines for them. Then again, we use the MOH allocation of Health Insurance Fund, some part of it to also procure mental health medicines, HIV and TB medication to supplement what Global Fund gives us. And I think this is what we'll continue to do.
Your government in its manifesto of 2016 said that the National Health Insurance Scheme was probably in coma. Did you inherit a scheme which was in coma?
Honorable Chair, my simple answer is yes, but I don't want to sound political.
It's years when you had other countries coming to understudy Ghana's health insurance system as being the most efficient and effective.
Definitely, the system that we set up there, including myself, I was one of the foundation chief executive of health insurance, attracted very many people, far earlier than even the period that we are talking about. But that doesn't mean that our health insurance that I inherited wasn't collapsing. Honestly, we owed 12 months in arrears. Facilities were charging quietly in their facilities, and patients were not benefiting from health insurance at all. We only have a structure that was paying people with little amounts of monies that they get for their salaries. But down there in the facilities, this wasn't happening.
Can you describe the nature of the coma of the NHI you inherited? What was the nature of that?
We're owing 12 months in arrears.
As of today, how much does the National Health Insurance owe, and in bonds beyond the 400 million?
Months, effectively between 2 to 3 months. We have paid up to August, Honorable Chair. Between August and now, let me say January end, it's about 5 months. By the law, we have space as a lead time, 3 months, to all providers to allow them to submit their claims and for us to get. So if you look at it very critically, effectively, we owe only 2 months.
As Minister, you probably may have perused the handing over notes of the National Health Insurance Authority. What is their outstanding liabilities?
Honorable colleague, it will be difficult for me to remember offhand. These numbers are so many.
Will you make that available to this committee so that we understand the extent to which areas have been cleared or the extent to which areas have been accumulated?
To it. Honorable, I can give the update from health insurance, and I think it's a paper I can lay later.
What quantity of COVID vaccines should we be expecting in Ghana, and from which countries? Your mid-March target.
We're expecting some limited amount of about 355,000 by March, like I said earlier on.
To cover a population of how many Ghanaians?
We've got a population of our estimated 20 million Ghanaians. That is our estimate.
Times 2 shots gives you what quantity?
40 million. And we are making arrangements to cover the entire 40 million within some period of time.
Which particular medication are we looking at? Is it the one coming from the US or from South Africa or from Europe?
The medication is coming from Europe now, AstraZeneca. The Pfizer one, we don't have the cold chain infrastructure to bring in because of the ultra-zero temperatures that you should store the commodity in. So we are zooming on AstraZeneca. But the good news is that we are getting support from COVAX, the Gavi arm, and then the AU has actually set up the African Medicine Supply Platform. Honorable colleague, the difficulty with securing the products now is the fact that Gavi, for example, using COVAX facility, seems to have paid for almost everything that is being produced by all the manufacturers. The hope is that there are a lot more potential candidates that are coming. Johnson & Johnson, for example, in the next few weeks may get certification. Sputnik may get certification. The Chinese 2 companies that have done may get certification. So going forward, the product will become a little bit more common, and that is where countries like us will have access to some of the stocks to procure. We are using all networks. Like I said earlier, the president is calling bilateral diplomatic levels to try to ensure that we get some of these commodities as quickly as we can.
The challenge of sustainable health insurance financing in Ghana in the last decade, including yesterday of your own supervised health insurance, is one of funding. You have hinted at premium increment to make it sustainable. You want to share your numbers with this committee?
No, I don't think I'm in a position to do that yet. We did some calculations far earlier, around 3 years ago, but we couldn't progress it to come to
pass. You want to share any actual findings and status recommendations with our committee?
These numbers are difficult for me to do. I don't want to come and tell you 10, then tomorrow it's 5, and then I have a problem. So when I haven't seriously prepared into that area, I don't have documents in front of me.
Are you suggesting that the 2.5% VAT plus that pension premium may not be enough to adequately finance that into the future?
I've told you earlier on that that is not adequate. That is not adequate. If we get something extra, there's a lot of insurance can do.
Will you attribute that to population increase in terms of people accessing health care through national health insurance and government not complementing it with adequate financial releases to the Ministry of Health?
Not only population increases, but cost escalations in terms of medications and equipments and devices, and even the skills that provide these services. If you are paying for doctors and that is being covered by health insurance, you can imagine. So price increases on the market for commodities that are used by health providers.
Chairman, I want to tease the nominees' mind. There's an important Supreme Court ruling. I'll get the record for this committee on the public account, and may I respectively refer you to Article 187 of the Constitution against the Supreme Court ruling that the Auditor General has the powers to surcharge even before Parliament as an institution as required by Article 187 examines the report so submitted to us. What is your view on it? And Chairman, I quote, Article 187 provides, the Auditor General shall within 6 months after the end of the immediately preceding financial year to which each of the accounts mentioned in Clause 2 of this article relates, submit his report to Parliament and shall in that report draw attention to any irregularities in the accounts audited and to any other matter which in his opinion ought to be brought to the notice of Parliament. Then Chairman 6R, Parliament shall debate the report of the Auditor General and appoint where necessary in the public interest a committee to deal with any matters arising from it in the performance of his functions under the Constitution. So emphasis the 6. With your enormous experience of public accounts, the Supreme Court has passed a ruling saying that Auditor General can even proceed ahead of Parliament. Do you find anything professionally or legally wrong with that?
Honorable Chair, you are soliciting my opinion on this matter.
Well, you're not bound to give it, but if
I'm
you
not
wish
bound
to
give this opinion. I decline to actually respond to this question.
What's the status of the Bolgatanga Teaching Hospital?
Honorable Chair, Bolgatanga Teaching Hospital has faced a hiccup. The project is supposed to be done with donor funding from the Saudis. And I must say, one of the disappointments that I've had is funds from that area. They delay and delay and delay. I remember when I pushed and pushed, there was indication of them having restored that money to come to us. I went to Bolga and promised, just like you do when you go to Tamale, you know. Then I came back and I said we'll finish in September. Work started. Their money to do the equipment, the procurement for the equipment. You send them your thing.
As part of the President's initiative, one region, one regional hospital, so can you assure the people of the Upper East region when they should expect commencement of work on their regional hospital?
The civil works is completed. We have done procurement and they have to approve. No objection is gone. And for nearly 3-5 months now, they haven't brought it. During the elections, I was shying away from going to Bolga because they would ask me questions.
What's the status of WA?
WA is operating now. We had initial challenges with electricity connection.
There are still uncompleted structures as you drive by the airstrip looking at it, which are medical facilities. What are you doing about it?
American facilities, we may have to. It's not part of the facility itself. The contractor has sent it over to us. We've done commissioning. We've looked at everything. So there are other facilities we can add on. I think we may have to look at it again and plan to incorporate that facility.
Specialized training for medical professionals, and probably my view, you know, law and medicine in Ghana. Chairman is here, respected lawyer from Bekwai, those who have gotten medical training like the Honorable Napo. What will you do to demystify medical training so that every hamlet, district of Ghana can boast that it has a talent, it has trained in medicine? What can you do to demystify medical training and make it increasingly accessible to the Ghanaian?
Honorable Chair, the only solution is to expand training facilities in the country. Presently, young people who score very brilliant aggregates, 1, you score B2 in English, and you don't get admission to do anything as far as medicine is concerned. The government is strategizing to actually increase the capacity of training schools and probably build new ones.
Chairman is sharing the numbers with me. So aggregate 8. The state, you are the President Principal Advisor on Health, Ghana Medical School. Those with aggregate 8, the inability of the university medical schools to take them is government's inability to adequately resource them with financing. So they do by their capacity. Will you break this obstacle in order to expand access to medical health training for doctors for Ghana?
Honorable Chair, with your support, if Parliament can impress upon Finance Ministry to give us resources, we will so do.
Assuming the UDS Tamale wants to expand either in Yendi or Pung Tamale, would you want to encourage the setting up of additional medical facilities, or beyond Savulugu going through Nasia? Would you want to expand?
Honorable Chair, my vision is not only there in the north for expansion. I'm now thinking of even converting Sunyani Regional Hospital into a teaching hospital. And
when will the people of Sunyani be assured that they have a regional hospital beyond what was built a decade ago?
We have finished a very huge facility at Nsoko as part of the Eurojet project. You can go there and visit. So in my vision, we are trying to put the 3 or 4 big hospitals in the Gno region and make it situated in Sunyani, and then the UENR will have to create a medical school to train, to add on to the numbers that we have in the system.
We have all avoided talking about it. Chairman is my last. I'm probably winding up. The police hospital, as you drive just by Dankwa Circle, you find an uncompleted hospital for the police, which has been standing for over a decade today. Will you take particular interest to get it completed? It's an expansion project.
Honorable Chair, this is an opportunity for me to bail myself out. The police hospital is managed by the Ministry of Interior. Honorable Agalga knows. So my mandate, the Ministry of Health mandate, doesn't get to the facilities like Bank of Ghana, police hospital, the military hospitals. We call them quasi-government institutions. They are not under the mandate of the Minister for Health. And several people, even Joe FM, when they were trying to assess minister's performance, they were assessing me on uncompleted Afari, military hospital, and the police hospital, and gave me a mark of 49%. Seriously unfair.
They were looking at standards in those hospitals. Who says standards for them?
Let me educate the public. The Maritime Hospital, Egapoha, Bank of Ghana, Commercial Bank Hospital, police, migration hospital, prisons, all of them are under the mandate of the ministers who hold those agencies.
Are you satisfied with our COVID testing regime in Ghana? Are you personally satisfied?
I think so, Honorable Chair. I think I'm very satisfied. Ghana, so far, we have one of the best testing areas in the country. In the world.
Private sector operator at the airport, did he invest in any infrastructure before the takeoff?
All the infrastructure there, it belongs to them, the equipment, the PCR machines and the things that they brought.
You are a Ghanaian minister. Noguchi is Ghanaian. Could Noguchi have performed that particular function or role?
Honorable colleague, you remember, in the heat of affairs, not even now, Noguchi had to kill samples for how long? Initially, when we started, we had only 2 that are PCR machines, Noguchi and, how do I call it? KCCR in Kumasi. We have to find a way to expand. And we have to bring in things that will turn our GNSPECT equipment to test PCR. That is how come we are testing in Tamale and the reference laboratories in Navrongo and Dodoa and Quintampo and everywhere. So we've actually expanded our capacity to test, and then we allowed private sector.
Chairman, I'm done, but just an observation. The Honorable Ahi, in his submission, made a very important point, and I just end on it. Intensive care units across the country, we are managing COVID as if it's only an urban problem in Accra and elsewhere. There is critical shortage of oxygen in many areas for COVID patients, and we trust that when you are approved, you may be able to deal with some of these critical emergencies. Shortage of beds. I know a senior chief executive officer who was struggling on chair wheels to be oxygened just because there was no bed facility. What happens to a poor, vulnerable person? So, Chairman, I thank you for the opportunity since we still have one nominee outstanding.
We've done practically 5 hours of this. Yes. 5 hours.
I will ask the male amongst you.
We will start discussing regulating how many people can ask a question, because in many of them it is. Anyway, Honorable Minister, I don't have a question. I just wish to urge you to look at the attitudes of healthcare professionals. You have very beautiful facilities, but when you go in, the care you get is not commensurate with the beauty of the infrastructure. All the beautiful structures, the healthcare professionals, their attitudes are appalling. They don't have the emergency attitude. In some of the small communities, while the patient is lamenting, crying, they are on their phone. The nurses and others are on their phone, ignoring the patients. I think we must pay attention to their orientation. That brings us to the end of consideration of the Honorable Nominee. We thank you for attending upon the House. We will we will hear from us. Thank you very much, Honorable. You've endured 5-hour grilling. I sympathize with you, but thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. And let me thank you, especially Chair, and your leadership of the committee, and all my colleagues who sit on the committee. I'm very grateful for enduring 5 hours, to sit here to interrogate me. I thank you so much for your work. Thank you.
Now you're discharged. Thank you.